Hi, this is Born62. This video is the second in the series about using the punching bag as a training equipment. Today I'll talk about your stance, your footwork and your distance. The first video was only about what equipment to use, so today we'll get into what you can actually do. So first off, I'll have to tell you the focus is about using the punching bag for fitness. Secondary focus is about self-defense or street fighting if you want. So this is not about any particular system or sport. So if you need to train up for Muay Thai, kickboxing, karate, something like that, you should search for instruction on your exact system or sport. So this is something you can use either at home if you have a punching bag or in a fitness center with punching bags. And the first focus here, the first commitment is about fitness, how to use this to train. But my point of view is that you might as well do it in a real way, something that can be used and not just stand in front of the bag and punch like Donald Duck or something like that. So first off, about the stance. There are several ways to stand, and if you have ever seen something like Taekwondo, the sports edition, that is, where they score points by delivering kicks to the opponent, you'll see that they have the side almost completely turned to the opponent. That is because strikes are not allowed to the head. They are wearing vests, so there's no really good idea about punching the other guy because the vest will take up all the force of the punch. So most of the tournament is done by delivering kicks and scoring points. And for that, it's a good idea to be turned sideways. In self-defense, it's not a really good idea. In self-defense, you have to be able to deliver strikes and kicks with both sides of the body. So be turned completely sideways, well, that doesn't work very well. On the other hand, if you stand like this, your center line is completely open and you are very vulnerable to different kinds of strikes and kicks and stuff like that. Your center line is, the way we are constructed, is the place where you have a lot of vulnerable targets, like the groin, the lower abdomen where your bladder is located, your solar plexus, your throat, your chin, the area around your mouth and beneath your nose, and the nose itself. All these targets are pretty vulnerable, so you want to be able to protect them. So for that you are turned at least 2/4 or 3/4 sideways, like either this or this, depending upon what system you are born into, so to speak. You will sometimes see karate guys almost with a side tilt. You'll also see boxers box like this. Or you will see people from Muay Thai with a more open stance like this, because they want to be able to deliver kicks with their rear legs as fast as possible. In my opinion, you shouldn't be fixed in a completely fixed stance, but move about, and by that you might change the angle a bit to the opponent. But that is also to make sure that he or she doesn't know exactly how you are placed. Usually you put your strong hand, in my case the right hand, at the rear and your weaker hand in front, because you can deliver all your really powerful shots best from the rear. So the lead leg, the left leg in my case, and the lead hand is there for quick strikes, quick kicks and so on, but they don't have the same force as something delivered with the rear leg or the rear hand. So a stance like this, I'll move a bit back so you can see my feet. This one is, well, about 2 or 3 o'clock. This one is a 12:15, so to speak. And the weight is not distributed in an evenly way. I have a little more weight on my rear leg, so I can pick up my front leg pretty fast if someone tries to kick my leg or sweep it so I lose balance. In karate you have instruction books telling you that in this or that stance you have 70% of your weight on the rear leg and only 30%. I don't think you should be that fixed. You will move about, and sometimes you have a little more weight on your front leg and sometimes a little less. But this 70-30% is pretty accurate for most of these stances. So more weight on the rear leg. But again, you'll see people who fight brilliantly with a more frontal stance and with more weight on both legs. So both can be done. I'm not a great fan of an exact way to do this. You have to get it to work for you. But consider defending your center line. Another thing is that you need to defend your head above all. Your temples, the side of the jaw, is pretty vulnerable, and a hard kick or hard strike to these areas will send you to the floor. And in a street fight or self-defense situation, that will be devastating. So your hands should be up like this. In Muay Thai you sometimes see a position like this. In my opinion, this makes that arm pretty vulnerable, especially if we are talking a fight situation where grappling is allowed or can be used, because then by stretching out your arm, someone can grab that arm. Other times you see people with your arms about both sides of the head pretty close to them, usually because they are wearing large gloves that will protect the head if the hand is hit. Without gloves, this is not a good position, because if someone hits my hand, I'll knock my own head with my own hand. So I prefer to have them somewhere like this, being able to parry any shot that comes, block it, or simply move out of the way. So a stance where you kind of move like this, back and forth, is what I recommend. Next is the footwork. The footwork is always done so you keep your balance point between your feet, meaning that you don't step forward or backwards like you walk. When I shift my legs and step forward like this, my balance point is not under my body all the time, and at the moment where I lifted this leg and shifted forward, well, it's pretty easy to sweep my leg or push me over and I'll fall to the floor. So all the time I've been moving by starting out with the foot that is in the direction I want to move. So when I want to come forward, I slide my my front foot forward first, and then follow up by the next one. And backwards it's the same. First the rear foot and then the other one follows. When I want to go to the left, my left leg starts, and I slide in here and to the right like this. It's pretty simple once you learn it. Of course there can be techniques where you want to shift your foot position, so you have your right foot forward and so on. But this is something you do on rare occasions, because there is an opportunity or technique or something like that you want to apply. You don't walk about when you fight like this, because you'll be pretty vulnerable and out of balance much of the time. So always move back and forth like this and slide. The other thing is that most combat sports you need to be on the front part of your foot, sliding on your toes, and don't stand flat on your heels. You actually have this expression in boxing where you say he was down on his heels, meaning that he's beginning to lose because stamina and self-confidence is draining away from this guy. So be up on your toes, be able to move about. The emphasis of this is a bit different from sport to sport. In boxing you will see people being on their toes all the time. In karate, Muay Thai, you'll see a little bit more of a flat-footed look, because you need to have one leg in the floor to be able to push off with the other one and kick. So, but practice moving about. It's good fitness in its own right, simply moving out and away from the back and onto the back again. Back and forth from side to side. And now about distance. Sometimes when you come into fitness centers and see classes of fitness boxing, you will see people be standing in front of the back and just punch like this. Of course they're using their upper bodies and they're probably training really hard, but this is not a good way to learn to do something you should be able to use in self-defense. So we'll talk about distance. In my opinion, there are 5 distances that are usually a good way to view this. Number 1, you're out of reach. And in a real situation, your best option here would be to run away. If you can't reach your opponent in any way and he can't reach you, well, you have the option not to fight but actually leave instead. So think about that. Position number 2 is one where you can kick your opponent and he can also kick you at the same time, of course. When I'm standing like a set, left leg forward, right leg at the rear, well, how far do I have to get away from the back to be able to kick it? Can I kick it now? If I lift up my leg like this, you can see it will not reach the back. But that is not real, because when I kick it, even with my front leg, I'll slide a little bit forward and I'll push up with my right leg. So standing here, I can kick the back pretty easily. So even more here, because when I use my rear leg, I'll shift my hips and it will come forward like this. So the position where I cannot kick the opponent, or the back in this case, is actually pretty far away. The same goes with the striking distance, which is the 3rd distance. When I just reach out now, I can't reach the back. But if I strike it, I'll come forward like this. So 3rd distance is also pretty far from the back. So if you're trying out boxing either at home or in a fitness class, you should always assume a position a little further away from the back than you actually think you can hit it in. Then try to reach out and see if you can hit it. Like this. If you get used to be standing in here to hit the back, you are going toe to toe, as some commentators would say, and that is pretty unhealthy, because when you can hit the opponent all the time, he can also hit you. So in a real fighting situation, you don't want that. 4th distance, that is clinch work, that is pretty close. And as we move along about what techniques to use, we'll also talk about this. You cannot really kick in here, but you can use knees, so you can use a lot of kicks with your knees. You can use elbows, you can start grappling, and you can punch in this close distance. So we'll talk about the clinching distance further on in coming videos. The 5th position is where this becomes wrestling, where you start to getting your hooks in, get a grip under the other guy's arms and stuff like that. I will not cover that as much, but that is the 5 position, the 5 distances we can talk about when we talk about this. If you're only going to box the back, not kick it, but only strike it, always think about being a little further away than what you can just reach, and then slide a little bit back and forth as you strike. That was it for now. I hope you have got the feeling for getting a punching bag or using one, because it's a really great fitness instrument and something that you can enjoy doing for many years. Next time I'll talk about particular strikes, the straight punch and the jab, and we'll move on from there. Hi.